Well, boils and ghouls, it's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I want to welcome my good fiends of the Horror Heals podcast. Is horror good for mental wellness? But of course it is. I delight in the delicious deaths of pitiful people on the silver screen. So get ready for a hell of a good time with my new fiends, Corey and Kendall, on the Horror Heals podcast.
Hey, horror family, welcome back to Horror Heals. Now, normally I'd have my partner in crime, Kendall, right here with me, but today, it's just me on the mic for this one. Don't worry, he's still lurking in the shadows, probably judging my word choices from afar. And honestly, this episode is a special one. Today, I'm talking with Porsher and Elijah Black, two absolute rock stars in the horror community who are using their love of all things spooky to create something truly meaningful. If you've ever felt like your anxiety was turning your life into its own horror movie, you are not alone. And Porsche knows that all too well. If you've ever struggled with anxiety, depression, or just felt trapped in your own head, this episode is for you. We're diving deep into mental health, healing through horror, and how cosplay became a way for them to give back to the community. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, Porsche and Elijah, welcome to the Horror Heals podcast.
Hi,
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, yeah. So I will say I just watched the Instagram video that you shared a ways back again, and it's not an easy watch for sure. Definitely a little bit triggering for me because I can certainly relate. I think only people who have truly gone through hardcore anxiety can understand and appreciate what that feels like. So I thought that was an extremely brave thing for you to do and put out to the world. So can you talk a little bit about your decision to do that?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with depression back in 2016, and I had a great handle on it. I was seeing a therapist, I was taking medication, everything was great. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I developed panic disorder, general anxiety, more specifically, health anxiety as well. So that was a whole new experience, and it was so bad to where I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. He had to hold my hand because I was just so scared. Every shower was like a race because I didn't want to be enclosed in any spot. So I'm a suffer in silence kind of person. And that's what I was always taught to do as a kid. And when this happened, I had the loving support of my husband, but I didn't have anybody else to kind of talk to. And at that time, I realized talk therapy was the most beneficial to helping me get over that hump. So I put a post up there on my personal Facebook page, just kind of asking or expecting maybe one or two people to contact me back and say, hey, I'll talk to you. No, I got flooded with a bunch of friends who also were dealing with mental health issues or had in the past. And I was amazed at the structure and support circle that I had and didn't even know that was there to help pull me through. When I was documenting the whole process, I was talking to my therapist and she was talking about journaling. I'm not very good at that. I do stuff at night to write down everything. It would end up being a book for one day. With the videos, you can't really convey in writing how you truly felt in that moment. And I was documenting things via video because I wanted to see just how painful it was to be dealing with that day, or what a struggle it was one day, and then another day I was completely fine. So I wanted to show everybody that people think when you heal and get over that it's going to be just this continued gradual recovery up. But recovery is not linear. You'll have your down days, you'll have your up days. It's just how you cope through them that gets easier. And I wanted to let people know that it's okay to ask for help. Don't be like me and take a month to say something.
Right. Right. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there with that explanation and the video. And while the video was a little bit triggering for me, it also just made me feel so supportive, of you and others who go through this stuff. And I remember I was also like a suffer in silence kind of person. And I remember my mom and sister and niece were visiting us in California when we lived there. And we were at the beach. My mom's just like, you're not yourself. You don't seem like yourself. And it's like, and you don't know how to explain it. I literally broke down in my then boss's office. And that was like, okay, I got to go see somebody. And then I'll say the therapist I saw was not super great. Like, literally was like, I'm prescribing you this, but it's going to take about 4 to 6 weeks before you start feeling the effect. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I feel like I'm going to die right now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you're right. It's not linear. Things do get better, but then it's a roller coaster. But I think the more that we normalize it, I think it's important. So love that you're doing that. And then also love that you guys are giving back to the horror community through cosplay and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about the origins of Return of the Giving Dead?
Sure. So really the whole thought process behind it was there's a lot of different cosplay groups that do charity work, but Porsher and I were discussing it and we weren't able to really find a general horror cosplay group. Seemed like most of them had to be very stringent on what you're putting up, what kind of cosplays you're doing. If they're a little too scary, you're just out, right? And so we wanted the freedom to kind of be all inclusive, mostly because, when you think about it, real life it has the capacity to be a lot more horrifying than anything that a movie can put out. There's so much evil and darkness in the world that a lot of people, myself and Porsche included, when we were younger, kind of went to horror movies, because it's still sort of like a fantasy. How great we were thinking it'd be to have kids be able to turn towards these horror icons for support and comfort, to try to combat against the terrible things that everyday normal people do. If you're in a terrible home situation, maybe your escape would be popping in Halloween 3, because it kind of takes you away from your actual life, as terrible as that sounds. And so we really wanted to kind of have a space for people that do really enjoy horror to still show that they really care about people. And truly, we've done a lot of charities and stuff in these past several years. And
To sum it up, it was fighting fire with fire, using monsters to combat the monsters in the real world. The biggest thing is we've noticed that everybody in the horror community has been the most giving in our experience.
The horror community is very open when it comes to helping other people.
And with organizations, they don't expect a bunch of horror fans to give back or to do like a pumpkin raffle in December and whatnot, which is what we ended up doing. So we wanted people to not perceive folks in the horror community as like, oh,
stay away from them,
kind of scary sort of thing. No, I always say that we love monsters, but we're far from being one.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. I think many of us feel like we're just starting to live in a real life horror movie.
Yeah.
And so we need the fake horrors even more so than ever. So could you talk a little bit about the origins of how you decided to get into cosplay in the first place?
Yes. Before I met my husband, I was really into costuming. This is before I even realized what the word cosplay meant. So I was very influenced by Quentin Tarantino movies, and I liked doing the cosplays of his female characters because every female character in there was a total badass and very femme fatale, beautiful, but also deadly. And I was like, man, this is so cool. I would like to emanate the energy of these women. And I was at the time in an abusive relationship, both physical and mental. So that's kind of where my outlet came from. felt stuck in the relationship I was in because I was financially dependent on this person. So doing these characters that are so independent, so badass and beautiful, it was my way of escaping. And when I finally got away from that relationship and met Elijah, I kind of started, he was big into comic books and so was I outside of the horror stuff. And we started going to conventions together. I think that was like one of our earlier dates.
Yeah.
The first couple of dates, I was going to a convention and I told him that I cosplayed before. And he was like, oh, that's so fun. I have dreams all the time about being Spider-Man. So I want to dress up too. And we started going to conventions and doing cosplay as comic book characters. And we got married as Gambit and Rogue. So cosplay has been a big part of our lives. But one thing we had noticed was there wasn't a lot of horror cosplayers at comic conventions and different market of demographic of people and whatnot. So we started jumping into that, just wearing a battle royale school uniforms with blood to go see battle royale in theaters.
Yeah.
And that kind of kicked it off here.
Yeah. That's awesome. Wow, what a cool early date going to a con together. And I mean, what a great way to get to know somebody. Like, you can just see what they're into by what booths they want to go to and which guests they want to meet and all that stuff. That's awesome. Love that. When you were speaking, Porsche, I was thinking Kill Bill. The Kill Bills are probably my favorite Tarantino movies. And part of that is because the B characters is such a badass. And those movies are the ones that have the best badass female characters, you know. So awesome. Very, very cool. And I got to say, I saw on your Instagram page the Father's Day Creepshow cosplay. Wow. That's chef's kiss. That is really, really awesome. What are some of your favorite horror-themed cosplays that you've done?
It's really hard to decide.
That's like asking us which child is our favorite or which dog is our favorite.
You know, and that's so funny because because Kendall will be the first to tell you that his favorite dog is Furley. He has no problem shifts. Whereas I never will say out loud, like, which my favorites. I mean, I think you can kind of tell which ones I dote on a little bit more, but like, yeah, he has no qualms about his favorite dog is. So I'm sure he'd be the same with children too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Were there any that just kind of jumped to mind though?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say mine first. So the Creepshow one, I really liked the way it turned out. It was really smart and a kind of a stroke of luck finding a child's wheelchair at a thrift store. It kind of all fell into our laps and meshed together really well. I really like, it's one of the first ones we did, but we did Ash and Linda from Evil Dead 2 specifically. And that was the first prop I had ever made. I made the chainsaw arm. So that one always kind of, has a place in my heart because I really enjoy making props and rehauling, kind of bland masks and stuff. And so that was kind of where I thought, because I always thought to myself, oh, I don't have the skills or ability to make anything like that. Because, you see people with their foam armor and it's incredible what you can turn gum and toothpicks into. And I never thought I had that kind of ability, but I kind of proved myself wrong in a way.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Return of the Living Dead is probably one that I'm a little bit more, I don't want to say my favorite, but let's just call it what it is. It is very near and dear to my heart because it was the first major cosplay that we did where we've never seen anybody else do it. We went online and we saw how other people did it and then made it our own. With Return of the Living Dead, people did the characters, but not the movie poster. And that's what I wanted, was people to come up to us and immerse themselves in that movie poster. Though it's one of the more taxing cosplays because your arm gets heavy carrying that tombstone, and we got to paint I got to paint my whole body. You are pretty lucky with yours.
Yeah, I'm close to
But it was one where everybody just went, wow. And we went to Mad Monster, and that I didn't realize how much horror folks enjoyed something like that. One of the coolest things was a father coming up and saying, "Oh my God, this is incredible. This is my favorite movie." Bringing his son over and saying, "This is my favorite movie, and I haven't seen this before, and I need you to watch this when you're a little older." But like, I used to watch this all the time as a kid.
We got a lot of support for it, which really helps fuel the next one.
How many photos do you think you took that day with people?
Oh,
Like, we still wanted to, walk through the convention, but every couple of steps you'd have to stop and take a picture, right?
Yeah.
Which is a good problem to have. It's always like, oh, how cool is that? People really enjoy it. But at one point, we just had to stand outside the vendor hall because it was just too much. We needed a little break, and we are still constantly like, hey, can I get a picture? Can I get a picture? Which is all, like I said, it's really awesome and fun. But then someone walks up and they want to actually have a conversation with you. And then every other sentence, you got to stop and be like, hey, gotta take a picture really quick, then back to the conversation.
Yeah, outside of the vendor hall, when we just went out there to get a break, it was still consistent. Hey, can I get a picture? Can I get a picture of you? To the point where there was a line of people. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so hungry.
Very cool. I know for me, being at a horror con is like my happy place. Like I don't feel any of the twinges of anxiety or anything like that when I'm there. Is that the same for you, Porsche?
Yes. Seeing people smile and immersing myself in the character has been just tremendous. And it's opened up a lot of opportunities and conversations with people that we wouldn't probably have talking to, because as much as we love doing cosplay, we were both pretty introverted, and the cosplay helped us bring out that confidence and everything like that. So when I was diagnosed with the panic disorder and the health anxiety, I also found out that my cosplays also were one of my triggers with that. Mm-hmm. And that kind of broke my heart. But it was more on me, because when you do something that everybody loves and, it's so near and dear to you, it's like, how do I outdo myself next time? How do I elevate this more? What can I do to outdo the last one I did? And it turned into, we did a Jack Frost cosplay, because I got the big snowman that I'm holding to recreate that Shannon Elizabeth scene in the shower. And then he did the movie poster. I told him, we're not going to do any cosplays for this convention.
Yeah, so it was Christmas to Dismember. It was maybe a week before the convention actually started. And at that point, we didn't have any plans to make anything new, because
I said no.
She said, oh, we're taking a break. We're not making anything new. And then, literally 6 days before the convention, she's like, we have to do Jack Frost. So it's a race against time, because, the actor from Jack Frost was there. It became a time crunch, and it's super stressful, because every single day we have to get off work, come here, and then cosplay craft, which is normally therapeutic, but it can get to a point, especially when you don't have a lot of free time and you got to jam it all at once, it becomes a lot more stressful. And that's really where it kind of affected Porsche the most, really.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It was a competition with myself after talking with my therapist and learning that procrastination didn't help. I learned that I was a people pleaser, which should have been apparent given my childhood, but I was doing all these cosplays because it made people happy, it made me feel better and boosted my confidence. But just doing things last minute and feeling like I didn't have any boundaries is what caused a lot of my anxiety. With the line of people taking a picture, I never could say no. I never could say, hey, I can't talk for very long. I don't feel comfortable. So no matter how uncomfortable, and I was saying I was hungry and tired, I never said that to anybody. And I felt like if I would, they'd think we're rude or terrible people. And I've learned now that honesty is a big thing. If somebody cares about you enough, You just saying, hey, I know we were supposed to hang out today. I'm just not feeling it. I'm kind of feeling low and a little depressed and I want to nest up. And that has been a big sigh of relief because a lot of my friends understand and they're like, oh, no, don't apologize. We're fine. The open communication and being real with each other has just been tremendous through all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, and I think at a horror convention, like 99 out of 100 people are going to totally understand if you just say like, "Hey, I need a break. I'm feeling a little like, so I just need to step away for." But I think most people would totally get it and totally respect it.
Because the horror community, we noticed, like I said, they've been the most giving, they've been the most understanding, and I'm not calling anybody out, but I noticed a lot of us do struggle with mental health issues and concerns. So they've been the most understanding. And that's why we come together and we watch these movies and we all cheer when somebody's eyeball gets ripped out.
Right. Exactly. No, that's exactly why we do this podcast. It took almost like getting a hammer hit over the head to come to that conclusion, but I came to the realization of this is what the podcast is going to be at a horror convention after I witnessed somebody who was clearly going through a moment and it's like, oh yeah, this is it. And it has not changed. I came back and told Kendall about it. He'll go to conventions, but not like the really crowded ones. As soon as I explained and told him the story about what happened, he's like, yeah, that's it. And that's what we found is that a lot of people in the community feel like outsiders or they've struggled with something or another. And while our struggles are different, we can certainly relate and respect and honor somebody's wishes if they need to step away or do whatever. So, yeah, that's been so rewarding and just love being part of a community, even through starting the podcast and kind of building our Instagram following. We're introducing people to other people who are like, hey, you might want to talk to so-and-so about this. And that's so rewarding. And I guess Kendall and I are both people pleasers. This feels so good. But it'd be like, oh, we're giving back.
Oh, I love it. When you contacted me, I was thinking, oh my gosh, why has nobody done this? Horror heals. It truly does. We thank you guys so much.
We get it, but it's like we're almost like blind to it. Like we can tell people like, oh, I love horror movies and I love seeing all the different costumes and stuff. But then you don't take that next step and be like, oh, this is my therapy. Until it's like I had to be hit over the head, almost literally, to realize that. But yeah, it's like, oh yeah, duh. Yeah, and so it's we love this. Kendall and I both say that our two podcasts are like our therapy sessions, and they're great. They warm our hearts for sure.
Oh,
awesome. Well, I want to say before I get to our last question, going back to the video, Elijah, I just appreciate you being such a strong support. You could just see it through that video. The love is beautiful. When you're clearly in duress and your dog is kissing you, it's just like, oh my God,
Yeah, it was very powerful when I saw it too. And I love the way she kind of edited it together. It's really, you can sense and feel the pain that she was feeling, but it's a sort of pain that you can kind of connect with. And it touches my cold, dead heart. And, when I was there with her, it's a struggle for me because I don't know how to help in that moment. She would say like, hey, rub my back and also, have this going and do it a certain way. And, to me, in that moment, it didn't feel like I was making a difference. But overall, being able to support her that way, I'm glad that I was able to support her through that. I would never want her to experience any of that stuff again. But if she ever did, I'm happy to know that I've got the experience to try to help her through it.
Yeah. And not everybody can do that. So kudos to you for, I think that video is one of the best representations of getting people to understand what that helplessness of anxiety and depression can feel like.
100%. Having a supportive partner has been amazing. And one of the best things that you can do with somebody that struggles through mental health issues. When I was first going through depression, he just flat out said, I don't understand. I don't know how to help you. I've never dealt or handled anybody with any mental health issues. So I asked my therapist if it was possible to bring him with me to my session. And he was like, thank God I get some guidance and some help. And that's where he fully understood that I wasn't just sad. I wasn't just, you know, being angsty, I guess. My therapist said, you know, this is how things are working in her brain. This is how it's affecting her and can affect you. Here are some tips to help her cope. And he developed this whole new understanding. And I always joke with him now because he's become my therapist. He's a homeopathic doctor. He's a cardiologist, all because of my health anxiety. I'm not allowed to look up any of those Google symptoms because the amount of imaginary tumors and imaginary cancers that I survived through the whole health anxiety thing. So I'll ask him questions like, can I mix this med with this med? Am I going to cause my heart to explode?
Like, hold on, let me check.
Love that.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys are a beautiful couple. This is very
Thank you.
heartwarming. All right. The last question that we ask every guest on Horror Heals is, who is your favorite final person in a horror movie?
Right off the bat, I'm sorry.
No, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I got to say that there are a lot of amazing females out there that like I say, are super powerful. But one of the gals that sticks out to me is the final girl in You're Next. I think her name's Erin. There was no moment where it showed her getting to a point where she was as soon as stuff went down, she was like, all right, I was born and bred for this. Let's get this going. Take this trap, do this. Like, she was just a total badass from start to finish, and something that it's hard. It's so hard to surprise me with movies. I am that terrible person that you should watch movies with. So I'll be like, oh, $5 that somebody's going to be behind the door. Yep. This one completely threw me for a loop. I was just like, oh, she's secretly a badass. This is incredible. And she got revenge on everybody. And I'm all for those whole, good for her.
Yeah, we just recently rewatched that, and Kendall really can't handle like home invasion movies, but for whatever reason, that one isn't as triggering, maybe because it's just so over the top. But yeah, it was awesome. That's a great pick.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I gotta say it's probably Linda Hamilton in all the Terminator movies, just because you see how her character changes from the first one, where she's this scared American woman that has never experienced any kind of sci-fi horror before. She's just like you and me, having brain meltdowns of the absurdity of a robot assassin coming to kill you for the only reason in the future, right? But then you see how that shapes her throughout the different movies. She becomes a total badass all the way until it completely consumes her, and she kind of becomes the monster herself. So you see that shift of attitude and tone throughout the movies, where it's like, what has she have to give up in order to survive? She's as cold and methodical as a machine at that point.
Awesome. Well, you guys are amazing. Keep doing what you're doing and giving back to the community, and the community will continue to give back to you for sure.
100%. We appreciate everything that you guys do with this podcast. We were listening to it, and again, it's just so crazy how I can't say like, oh, I truly understand what you're going, or like, because we really don't know what somebody feels.
Yeah, it's different for each person.
Yeah, different for each person. So I can say that I have my own similarities with what the other guests on your podcast had. And it's been eye-opening. It's been a great connection because I have started following a lot of them too.
Awesome. Oh, I love to hear that. Yeah, everybody's story is different, but we can certainly relate and we can help build each other up, and be supported. Yeah, we love it. We love it. Well, thank you guys so much. Wow. Just wow. I knew this was going to be a great conversation, but I wasn't expecting to feel this many feelings. Porsher and Elijah, what you're doing is exactly what Horror Heals is all about. Turning pain into passion, using horror as a way to cope, and showing that this community is so much more than just blood and guts. And speaking of that, Return of the Giving Dead, come on, using horror cosplay to spread kindness and do good in the world, that's next level. I mean, if I had $1 for every time someone assumed horror fans were just creepy weirdos who live in the dark, I'd have enough to fund an entire horror convention. But the truth is, this community, this is where the most supportive, generous, and creative people exist. Also, I gotta say, your cosplay game is unreal. That Creepshow Father's Day look, legendary. And the Return of the Living Dead movie poster cosplay, that is some galaxy brain level genius. No wonder people were lining up for photos. You brought the movie poster to life. Porsher, Elijah, you two are doing something special, and we can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you for being here, for sharing your story, and for proving that horror isn't just entertainment, it's therapy. And to everyone listening, if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, when someone asks, is horror good for mental wellness? You tell them, of course it is. The Horror Heals podcast is produced and presented by How the Cow Ate the Cabbage, LLC.